Alright guys, unfortunately we have more censorship shenanigans to talk about here today. Since a few days ago, XSEED Games did come out and announce that they are canceling their Western release of the Corpse Party Tetralogy pack, citing platform guidelines for why this release could not happen. Which they did put out an official statement. I'll throw it up on screen as well as linking it in the description. Which, in this statement, they very conveniently did not name the platform in question here, but this game was only announced for one platform, which was the Nintendo Switch. So we obviously know who the culprit is here. This is another instance of Nintendo's meddling and censoring a game and stopping its release, which this has become a recurring theme over the last year or so. There's been several games that were announced for Switch and either ended up getting canceled or ended up being censored in order to release at all. This has happened to multiple games from the Neptunia series, as well as Tokyo Clan Pool, and several other titles as well. And I've made prior videos covering this when it's happened in the past to other titles. Which, quick follow-up, I made a video talking about Neptunia Rebirth 1 actually getting a physical Asian English release on the Switch. The same thing did happen to Rebirth 2 and 3. I never made follow-up videos for those at the time. But yeah, all three of those did manage to make it to Switch in some fashion, but they never did make it up on the US eShop. Which, it looks like this game is not making it onto the US eShop either. Which we already kind of knew something was up since a few weeks ago, I think it was now, XSEED did halt their physical pre-orders for this game. So people were already kind of expecting something bad to happen here. Which, this game, it is a Tetralogy pack, so it is a compilation of 4 previously released Corpse Party games. It includes the 2021 remade version of the original Corpse Party Book of Shadows, Corpse Party Blood Drive, and the spin-off Corpse Party Sweet Sachiko's Hysteric Birthday Bash. Which XSEED did mention in their statement that content from multiple of these games were an issue with some guideline that Nintendo has now. Which, of course, all this is still vague and nondescript, so we have no idea exactly what content violated any of these guidelines or what these guidelines actually are. Which, as for me personally, I've played the original Corpse Party and Book of Shadows on the PSP, and I own Blood Drive, but, it's buried in my backlog with everything else, so I haven't got to that one yet, and I've never played the Birthday Bash spin-off game. So I've played 2 out of 4 of these games, and the first thing that popped into my mind when I saw this news was the bath scene from Corpse Party 1. But I'm not sure if that was the culprit or not, because there's a lot of nonsense going on here. There's a tiny bit of fan service in these games, and obviously, if you couldn't tell from the Corpse Party title, there is a ton of violence. A lot of ones just directed towards children. So any number of contents in these games, could be subject to some sort of issue here. But the crazy thing about it is that Corpse Party 1 and Corpse Party Blood Drive are currently available individually on the US eShop on the Switch. So I don't know if this is a situation where there was some sort of content in Book of Shadows or Birthday Bash that specifically caused some sort of problem, or if it's just an issue of, in 2021 we didn't have these dumbass guidelines, so, Corpse Party 1 was fine then, but it's not fine now, even though we're still selling it right now as we speak. We're not going to let you re-release it in this compilation. Which doesn't make any fucking sense at all, but as always, whenever you're dealing with censorship, inconsistency and retardation rules the day. So, it's anyone's guess what they particularly had an issue with in any of these games. But the one silver lining with this is, with these games, there is a multitude of ways to get a hold of them. if you really, really want the Tetralogy pack on Switch, it did release in Japan without issue. Once again, this seems to be just a censorship problem that doesn't affect Nintendo of Japan, but affects their other worldwide branches. I'm not sure if it got a Asian English release or not, but it seems that obviously the US and EU versions are being cancelled here. However, the Japanese release of the game does include English on the cart, so if you want to either import a physical Japanese copy or pick it up digitally on the Japanese eShop, you still can get it on Switch through both those methods and be able to enjoy the games in English. Now, at last check, PlayAsia was sold out of the physical Switch Japanese version of this game, and I don't know if they're going to restock it or not. So I don't know how difficult / expensive getting a hold of a physical copy is going to be at this point. But of course you can go digital if you want. So if you specifically want the Tetralogy pack on Switch, you still have that method. Like I said, 2 of the 4 games are currently available now on the US eShop on Switch that you can just pick up at your leisure. As for other platforms, if you have access to old hardware, the original Corpse Party and Book of Shadows are on PSP, Blood Drive is on Vita, and I think the 2021 release of Corpse Party is on PS4 as well. So those are your options on PlayStation. On PC, all 4 of these games are available on both Steam and GOG, so you can pick them up on your platform of choice there. And I'm actually not sure about Xbox, I didn't look it up. Corpse Party 1 might be on Xbox, I'm not sure. But regardless, there's plenty of options available to you to get a hold of these games one way or another. So if you want to play them, you do have plenty of choices. Now, as always, it is very unfortunate that we couldn't just get a proper, US release of these games. It is always a bad thing when censorship interferes with a game being released on any platform for any reason. Which I actually will give XSEED some credit here for just canceling the release outright instead of bending the knee and censoring the games. These games would not work censored. They're meant to be shocking, they're meant to be graphic. Obviously, they're horror games. So tempering any of the content would not make anyone happy. So I do commend them for just canceling it outright and telling Nintendo to fuck off instead of, bending the knee and changing the content of the games. So it's unfortunate that this is happening. It's not really surprising. Nintendo has been doing this for a while now, like I said. I don't expect them to stop anytime soon, unfortunately. The only way to really get them to stop something like this is to hit them hard in the wallet. And, based on the Switch 2 release and their recent sales figures and stuff, it doesn't look like that's happening anytime soon. So, unfortunately, I do expect this to continue. Which, again, XSEED did mention that they are working on bringing over the newest Corpse Party game, which is Corpse Party 2 Darkness Distortion. And they were saying that hopefully that game won't be impacted. I'll believe it when I see it. I would not be surprised at all if that game ends up getting canceled on Switch and just released on, I think it's coming to PS5 as well. I think. Which, it's always a coin toss with Sony, whether or not they're going to censor anything either. So, who knows what the future of that game holds. Maybe worst case scenario can at least get released on PC as well. So, we'll have to see what comes of that. Hopefully everything can go alright with that release, since it actually is a new game in the series as opposed to this one, which is just a compilation of old games. But again, I'll believe it when I see it. So, yeah, this is yet another entry in an unfortunate saga for Nintendo. You can add it to their pile of negative PR that they've gotten over the last year between all these, censorship bullshit happenings going on, their Power World lawsuits giving them, not a good look. They're overpriced Switch 2 games and all that bullshit. It hasn't been a good year for Nintendo in terms of fan goodwill, at the very least. It might be good in terms of sales, but as far as their perception among gamers, I think it's taken a real hit this year since they've been doing some pretty bullshit things. Attacking emulators and stuff like that as well. You can add that to the list too. But yeah, this does suck. If you were looking forward to the Tetralogy pack, it looks like you're going to have to jump through some hoops to try to import a Japanese copy, or just end up picking up the titles on other platforms and other methods. But anyway, I guess that's all I got to say, so lots of luck to you and yours.